What's going on, guys? This is Bruce Matson, your host of the show, Metric Scout Fantasy Football, the show that talks about all things fantasy. And today, we're going over my elite tier of wide receivers, my top 6. And we're going to be breaking down wide receivers in 6-player intervals, video by video. I'm giving you a quick analysis on each one. That way, you get the rankings and you're ready for your draft. So let's get into it. The first wide receiver I'm taking off the board, I have ranked as my top guy, and he's ranked top in pretty much everybody's rankings. He's top in ADP, and that's Tyreek Hill. I mean, he plays for the Chiefs, one of the most electric offenses in the league, one of the most electric offenses we've seen in our entire lifetimes, to be honestly. And that matters. That means he's going to get consistent output. He's going to be in favorable game scripts. Last year, he saw a 23% target share, and he was seeing a lot of targets downfield with a 12.8 average depth of target, which equated to, when everything was said and done, 1,713 air yards. So he is getting the deep ball, and he's very efficient. According to Pro Football Focus, he averaged 2.16 yards per route run. And this all led to productivity in fantasy, where he had 7 wide receiver 1 weeks, 4 wide receiver 2 weeks. Tyreek Hill has been a staple in fantasy, has been a top guy for a while, and that's why I'm ranking him so high. However, for Tyreek Hill, though, I'm not drafting him much because he's being catapulted in the first round. He's like one of the few wide receivers up there, if not the only one in our drafts. And usually you want a pound running back, and that's what I've been doing in drafts. So I like him. Everybody likes him. Everybody wants Tyreek Hill. But it's usually like a right time, right place, right dollar amount situation when it comes to drafting him. And usually it's a little too rich when you have wide receivers that you can get later in a draft and you only have so many running backs at the top end. So the running back position kind of plays a factor in that. My next wide receiver, my wide receiver 2 off the board is Stefon Diggs. And Stefon Diggs has a very strong bond with Josh Allen. He was the key guy in the passing offense last year. He's a true alpha. Saw 29% share of the passing targets last year, and that was a transition from Minnesota to Buffalo. So we should see him be more comfortable this year and just continue to be productive. He had 1,713 air yards, tying Tyreek Hill, and averaged immaculate 2.51 yards per route run. He is very efficient. He is considered one of the best route runners in the league, and we see that in his statistics. He had 5 wide receiver 1 weeks, 6 wide receiver 2 weeks. So he's been fantasy relevant for 11 weeks out of the season, which is very steady. You can just call him Steady Eddie with 11 top 24 finishes. Stefon Diggs is an alpha wide receiver. He's going to be productive as long as he's healthy, and he is a good match for fantasy. He's a safe asset to get. There's really no risk involved when it comes to drafting Stefon Diggs. The next wide receiver I have ranked is Calvin Ridley, wide receiver 3. Julio Jones is gone. That's going to open up more targets in the passing game. Who are these targets going to go to? Calvin Ridley is just going to continue to be productive. He's going to be swimming in targets. He's going to be the lone wolf in the passing offense with Kyle Pitts. But he saw a 25% target share last year, led the league with 2,052 air yards, led the league with that. So he's getting those deep targets, which is also going to fuel his fantasy production. He had a 14.3 average depth of target, so those deep balls are coming to him consistently. 2.44 yards per route run, so he's very efficient. And then he had 6 wide receiver 1 weeks last year, 3 wide receiver 2 weeks last year. So he was productive. He did miss some time, though, last year, but it was all right. Calvin Ridley, I love his situation. I love that he is just going to be the guy in the offense. Till or unless Kyle Pitts takes over, but it should be the Calvin Ridley show. The next wide receiver I'm going to be talking about is Davante Adams, wide receiver 4. And I could easily rank him wide receiver 1. And the reason why is because we don't know about Aaron Rodgers' situation. Now we have a better idea that Rodgers is more likely going to be on the field. However, I'm still a little bit conservative on my ranking with him. I have him at 4. That's still a little bit low than where he really should be, considering he had a 34% target share last year. He is the guy on the offense. He is the offense in the passing game. He's the guy Rodgers likes to look to. He had 1,312 air yards. He missed some time. He was injured last year, still had 9 wide receiver 1 weeks and 1 wide receiver 2 weeks. He was the most productive wide receiver in fantasy from a per game basis when it comes to producing fantasy points. 2.96 yards per route run. It's just the motor between Rodgers and Davante Adams is just fueling all this production. It's efficient. It keeps it rolling. Those two guys have to be together for this to work. And when they're together, they're unbeatable right now when it comes to fueling that fantasy production. And Davante Adams, if we know Rodgers is back, it's a big boost to his fantasy football potential. It's hard to fade him, even though we do not have 100% guarantee that Rodgers is going to be back, because we know if he is back, Adams is going to see a large workload. So I can't fade him too much, and I can't put him up too high, so I feel like this is a safe spot for him. The next wide receiver on the list, this is wide receiver 5 in the rankings, is DeAndre Hopkins. And, of course, he's getting older. A lot of people are forgetting about him now, but he is one of the best wide receivers in the league. He's one of the few alphas, 29% target share. Wherever he goes, he demands targets. We saw him demand targets in Houston. We saw him do it last year in Arizona. That should continue to happen for him. Getting air yards, over 1,400 air yards last year, 8.9 average at the target, so he's getting the short intermediate targets as well. So it's not consistently fueled by deep balls, but he's getting a large portion of the passing targets, which is fueling his overall fantasy production. We saw that last year with 8 wide receiver 1 weeks, 1 wide receiver 2 weeks, so he's prevalent for 9 weeks out of the year. So that is something we want to look into when it comes to our fantasy drafts in 2021. He will be a little bit cheaper, more obtainable this year than some of the other higher end wide receivers due to that. The last wide receiver on my list I want to talk about is Justin Jefferson. The rookie phenom from last year went off, and he's kind of low in some people's rankings because he's going into his second year. People are a little skeptical on that, but I'm still rather high on him. As a rookie, he had a 26% target share, over 1,400 air yards, and then 11.4 average at the target. So he's getting a large share of the workload. He's getting air yards. He's getting those deep targets. That's fueling fantasy production, and he's efficient. He averaged 2.66 yards per route run, one of the highest in the league. He was the highest in the league in terms of yards per route run for a good portion of the year, pretty much until Davante Adams came back. That's something we need to keep note of. He was one of the most consistent, most efficient, most productive wide receivers for a good portion of the season last year, and we just can't fade that. We can't forget about that. He had 5 wide receiver 1 weeks, 3 wide receiver 2 weeks, which is very good for a rookie. They started off a little bit slow, let him build up, and then he just took off last year. So I like to see what he's going to do during his second year in the NFL. But that's it. That is my top 6 for you, my top shelf rookies. I'm going to have some more coming at you here soon. So you're going to want to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and I'll catch you next time.